Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching this, Bills Mafia and everyone else who's watching. Welcome to Red, White, and Bills. I'm your host, Sean Kula, and today we are going to break down the Ravens-Bills pregame in Baltimore. There's said to be some bad weather from effects from the hurricane. Prayers for everyone that was affected, of course, and they're expecting maybe some rain and some wind, so you go from playing at 100 degrees and nice and sunny to a lot of rain and wind, which, both teams are going to be affected, of course. But, when you got Lamar Jackson on the other side, breaking ankles in the wet. So, that's one thing we're going to be obviously having to focus on. But we're going to go through our who to watch. We're going to talk about keys to victory. And we're just going to wrap it up. Game time tomorrow. And for the Bills, I got three keys, three people to watch or groups to watch. Number one's the secondary. They did a, overall phenomenal job against the Miami Dolphins with the likes of Tyreek Hill and, Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill was limited to 2 catches for 30 yards, and Kaiir Elam was probably the star of that secondary. Unfortunately, Christian Benford got hurt and had to leave, and, so he won't be back for this game either. And then hopefully we have Jordan Poyer, but he's questionable. But regardless, I mean, this secondary, they had a lot of shoes to fill, some big shoes, and overall they did a good job. I mean, obviously, we didn't get the result that we wanted, but to just throw, there was a total of 3 games started between all 4 of those guys out in the secondary last week, and to do what they did, gotta give them a lot of credit. And then our defensive line and continue the pressure. The defensive line is the top unit in the league for the Buffalo Bills. And, when you're playing a guy like Lamar Jackson, who's playing out of his mind, basically playing like an MVP again, he's playing better now than he did when he actually won the MVP. So, he's going to – even when they lost to the Dolphins, he went off. So he did not lose that game for him. So, I give him all the credit of the world. The Ravens are stupid for not paying him a long time ago. Now they're going to be screwed kind of. But, this defensive line got to continue to bring pressure. We definitely don't have Jordan Phillips again. We hopefully have Ed Oliver, but if you watch the film breakdown, the defensive line was still at top level. So expect a lot from them, especially with Lamar Jackson. You got to make sure you keep contained defensive ends, and when you get to him, don't let him get loose because then he's gone. And last but not least for us, of course, it's the linebackers because they're also responsible of tackling Lamar Jackson, and they're probably going to have Edmonds spy Lamar Jackson because he's a little bit faster than Milano. And they probably want Milano in coverage for Andrews. So linebackers, you got to wrap up. You got to keep an eye on Lamar Jackson, and you can't let him slip through your fingers. He got a 79-yard touchdown against the Dolphins, ran up the middle, and then burned everybody. Can't allow that to happen this week. And if it's raining, expect a lot of run game from the Ravens. And who to watch for the Ravens? Of course, Lamar Jackson, as I already stated. 10 passing touchdowns, 749 passing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and almost 300 rushing yards. So he's number 1 in my MVP, odds right now, and then Josh, of course. But he hasn't been slowed down yet this year. He hasn't had a bad game, and he's dominated every game he's played in so far. So it's we can't anticipate that he's gonna have a bad game against us. We got to try to play and limit an MVP candidate and MVP, and he's already won one, so an MVP player because he's playing for his his career right now. They bet against him and he's betting on himself and he's winning. He's been winning. So I mean, it's different. You've seen all these people play on contract years and they just ball out, and they should have paid Lamar, and now he's they're all scratching their heads like, oh man, we're gonna have to pay him like the most guaranteed money in the world because we didn't pay him when we should have. And then for second for them is their secondary. Obviously, that's what lost them the game against the Dolphins, and even the Patriots, who have one of the worst offenses in the entire league, scored a lot of points on the Ravens. So their secondary, I mean, they got some ballers on there, but with injuries and new players, they just haven't been what the Ravens were like when they had Ed Reed out there, obviously. But They still got Kyle Hamilton. He's been making some good plays, but they're just the worst element of that team. And luckily for us, that's one of our strong suits is airing it out. So you got to watch that secondary, and it's something we need to take advantage of. And I say hopefully because if it's really wet, we know Josh can throw the ball, but we've seen time and time again it's the receivers that have trouble catching it in these conditions. So it'll be a collective effort for sure. And then one guy I always loved is Calais Campbell. He's just a beast on the D line. He's great at rushing the passer, great at run defense, and with how banged up our offensive line is, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see that battle go on. The Ravens have the number 1 points per game also, and the Bills are at number 3. So it's going to be it's probably one of the games of the week, high scoring games. Over unders at 51. I mean, I'm always taking the over when the Bills play, but I mean, this should turn out to be a good game, and hopefully it's the weather subsides and you can see team for team for who they are, and not just it's a 21-20 game because of the rain and people can't throw the ball or catch the ball. So hopefully we get to see a real good game. Keys to victory, as I already said, if it's going to be wet and rainy, ball security. You can't give up easy plays, easy turnovers for the other team to capitalize on. A big reason that the Dolphins won was because we basically gave them a 5-yard goal-to-goal touchdown. And, so you can't just give them a great field position like that when you're trying to take a lead and continue your lead. Limit Lamar. As I said, with most amazing players, you can't really stop them. But Lamar's the guy you got to try to limit. We didn't do too well against him in the regular season, and then we beat him in the playoffs. So I mean, we gotta try to emulate what we did there, and just get him uncomfortable. I mean, he'll run it out if he's uncomfortable, but that's why keeping contained and wrapping up is so important. And then last but not least, as we saw last week, we beat ourselves 100%. Can't do that. I know we're injured, and that's not an excuse, because when you have opportunities to win the game like we did last week, there's no excuse why you can't win. No matter how injured you are, if you have an opportunity to score the last point to win and you don't get it, that's on you 100%. Don't beat ourselves. No stupid penalties. No stupid turnovers. You got to capitalize when you're in the red zone, and that'll be a great way to win the game. So I can't wait for tomorrow. It'll be nice to get back on the winning column. It always stinks to lose. It makes the week feel so much longer, but this is going to be a really great game, honestly. I mean, I had the Ravens being between the 1 and the 3 seed this year. And, they lost that game to the Dolphins. They kind of blew it. But, I mean, that's just, it's just one game. You can't judge a team off of one game. So I still think the Ravens are a top unit. So we really got to win, especially because Miami won. And, Miami's 3-1 now. They got 2 division wins. We have 0. So we got to beat the teams that at least they beat for sure. Because say we go 2-2, Miami's 3-1. They got 2 division wins, and they beat us, and they beat the Baltimore Ravens. So, it's a game we got to win. I'm not going to say it's a must win, but you play to win the game. So thanks for watching, everyone. Let's go Bills. Let's get a dub and be 3-1.